The night was quiet. The small town slept under the blanket of stars, and only the sound of crickets filled the air. In the middle of this silence, a man named Daniel was sitting in his garage. He often stayed there late at night, fixing old machines and keeping himself busy. But tonight felt different. He could not explain why. The air was heavy, and the wind carried a strange hum, almost like a low vibration. Daniel put down his wrench and listened carefully. The sound grew louder, and it was nothing like the usual trucks or cars that sometimes passed on the lonely road nearby. This sound was sharp, almost electric, and it came from above. Daniel stepped outside and looked at the sky. His eyes widened. A silver shape glowing faintly rushed across the night sky. It was not an airplane. It moved too fast, too smooth, and it made no sense. Before he could understand, the shape slowed and hovered over the woods not far from his garage. A bright light cut through the trees. Daniel's heart raced. He wanted to run back inside, but his legs froze. Then in an instant, the light faded. The silver object rose higher, hummed louder, and then shot into the darkness, vanishing into the stars. The night returned to silence. Only the crickets sang again as if nothing had happened. Daniel stood in shock. "Did I just see a UFO?" he whispered to himself. But before he could even process what he had seen, he heard another sound, this time from the ground. A small cough, soft and weak, came from the side of the garage. His body stiffened. Slowly, carefully, he turned his head. There she was, a girl. She sat on the gravel, breathing heavily. Her skin was pale, almost glowing under the moonlight. Her hair was messy, her clothes torn, and her eyes were not human. They were large, bright, and sharp, like they could pierce through him. She looked young, but her gaze was full of fire. She was not afraid. She was angry. Daniel stepped back. Who are you?" he asked in a trembling voice. The girl did not answer. She only stared at him, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. She looked like she had been dropped there, left behind. For a moment, Daniel thought he was dreaming. Maybe he had fallen asleep in the garage. But the gravel crunched under his shoes. The cold wind touched his skin, and the girl's heavy breathing was real. The silence grew heavy between them. Daniel noticed her hands. They were covered in strange marks, scars that did not look normal. She clenched a small broken device in one hand. Sparks flickered from it like dying electricity. She held it tightly as if it was her only hope. Finally, Daniel found his courage. "Did they leave you here?" he asked softly, nodding toward the sky where the strange ship had vanished. Still, she said nothing. Her chest rose and fell quickly, and her lips pressed into a thin line, but the way she looked at him told him the answer. Yes, she had been abandoned. Daniel's thoughts raced. Why would they leave her here at his garage of all places? Was it a mistake? Or was it on purpose? And most of all, why her? The girl slowly tried to stand, but her legs shook. She stumbled and fell against the wall of the garage. Daniel moved forward on instinct and reached out to help her, but she slapped his hand away. Her strength surprised him. For someone who looked so weak, she had the spirit of a fighter. "Fine," he muttered, raising his hands in peace. "I won't touch you." She glared at him, breathing hard. But when another sound echoed in the distance, a car engine rumbling far down the road, her expression changed. Fear flashed across her face only for a second. Then it was gone, replaced by anger again. Daniel noticed it. She was not just some lost girl. She was running from something. Or someone. The engine sound faded, but the tension in the air stayed. Daniel realized he had two choices. He could close his garage, pretend none of this had happened, and hope that whoever left her here would come back for her. Or he could take a risk, the biggest risk of his life, and let her inside. His heart pounded. His brain told him to walk away, but his gut told him something else. He could not leave her out here, not like this. "Come inside," Daniel said finally, his voice firm but calm. "You look like you need help." The girl hesitated. Her eyes narrowed, suspicious and sharp. For a long moment, Daniel thought she would refuse. But then slowly she nodded once. As she stepped into the garage, Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. He knew his life would never be the same again. He had just opened his door to something beyond human, something dangerous. And somewhere in the distance, under the stars, the silver ship was already gone, but Daniel knew this was only the beginning. The garage was dim, filled with the smell of oil and old metal. Daniel closed the door behind them, locking it tight. His hands shook slightly as he pulled the chain on the small lamp above his workbench. A warm yellow glow spread across the room, and the girl's face came into focus. She stood near the corner, her back against the wall, her arms crossed as if ready to fight at any moment. Her eyes scanned the garage carefully, every tool, every box, every shadow. She was alert, more alert than any child should be. Daniel swallowed hard. "All right," he said softly, trying not to scare her. "Who are you? And what just happened out there?" No answer. She simply stared at him, silent, her glowing eyes unblinking. Daniel sighed and sat on his work stool. He could feel her gaze burning into him. She didn't trust him, that much was clear. But there was something else too. She was hiding something heavy. He noticed the broken device still in her hand. Small sparks flickered from its edges before dying again. The thing looked advanced, way beyond anything on Earth. "What is that?" he asked carefully. The girl's grip tightened. She pulled it closer to her chest and shook her head as if saying, "Mine. Don't touch." Daniel raised his hands in surrender. "Fine, keep it." He leaned back and studied her. She was breathing heavily, but he could see she was trying to act strong. She wanted to look dangerous, but she was also exhausted. Minutes passed in silence. Finally, Daniel got up and poured a glass of water from the old jug on his shelf. He placed it on the workbench, sliding it toward her. "Here, you look like you need it." She didn't move at first. Her eyes darted from the glass to him, suspicious. But then slowly she walked forward and snatched it up. She drank quickly, almost like she hadn't had water in days. Drops slid down her chin, and for the first time, Daniel saw a crack in her tough shell. She was vulnerable. When she finished, she set the glass down and looked at him. Her lips finally parted. Her voice was soft yet sharp, like someone who rarely spoke but always meant what they said. "They left me here," she whispered. Daniel froze. His breath caught in his chest. "Who left you?" he asked. She looked away, her eyes darkening. "My people." Daniel's head spun. So she was an alien. Not just some strange runaway. His heart raced, but he forced himself to stay calm. "Why would they leave you here?" She clenched her jaw. "Because I don't obey." Daniel stared at her, trying to piece the puzzle together. An alien girl abandoned at his garage holding a broken device, claiming she disobeyed her own people. It sounded insane, but the memory of the ship in the sky told him it was true. "Obey what?" Daniel asked quietly. The girl's eyes flickered with pain and anger. "They wanted me to follow. To join them. To do what they say. But I said no. I am not like them. So they dropped me here, like trash." Her words cut through the silence. For a moment, Daniel didn't know what to say. He saw it now, not just anger in her eyes, but rebellion. She had defied something far bigger than herself. The broken device in her hand suddenly lit up for a brief second. A faint image projected into the air above it. A cluster of stars connected by glowing lines. Daniel's mouth dropped open. A star map. The girl quickly shut it off, clutching the device tight again. "You saw nothing," she hissed. Daniel raised his eyebrows. "That looked like a map." Her glare was sharp, warning him not to ask more. But curiosity burned in his chest. That map, was it where she came from? Or where she needed to go? Before he could press her, something happened. A faint sound outside, tires on gravel, a car. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. He rushed to the window and pulled the curtain aside just enough to peek. Two black cars rolled slowly down the road. Their headlights were dim, but their movement was too deliberate. They weren't passing through. They were searching. Daniel felt a cold sweat on his forehead. Whoever they were, they weren't neighbors. He turned to warn the girl, but she was already moving. Quick and silent, she grabbed his arm and pulled him away from the window. Her grip was strong, stronger than any child's should be. She pointed to the corner of the garage where shadows were thick. Her eyes told him what her lips didn't. Hide. Daniel crouched with her in the shadows as the cars stopped near his house. Doors opened. Heavy boots hit the ground. Men's voices muttered in low tones. The girl's breathing slowed, steady and controlled, while Daniel struggled to keep his heart from pounding too loud. Through a crack in the wall, he saw one of the men. Black suit, black glasses, and something glinted on his belt, metal like a weapon. Daniel's mind spun. Whoever they were, they weren't here for him. They were here for her. The girl leaned close, whispering just loud enough for him to hear. "They will never stop until I am gone." Her words sent a shiver down his spine. He realized in that moment whatever secret she carried, whatever rebellion she had started, it was dangerous enough to make powerful people hunt her down. And by letting her inside his garage, he was now part of it. The air in the garage grew heavy. Outside, the sound of footsteps crunched over gravel. Daniel's chest tightened as he pressed himself deeper into the shadows. The girl crouched beside him, calm in a way that frightened him. She didn't blink. She didn't tremble. She was like a soldier who had hidden from enemies many times before. The voices outside grew clearer. "Check the perimeter," one man said. "She couldn't have gone far." Daniel's stomach twisted. They were here for the girl. His eyes darted to her. She only nodded slowly as if confirming his thoughts. Then she put a finger to her lips, warning him to stay silent. The garage door rattled. A man outside tugged at the handle, testing it. Daniel's heart pounded so loudly he was sure they would hear it. But the lock held, and after a tense moment, the footsteps moved away. The girl leaned closer, whispering into his ear. "They are not humans." Daniel frowned, confused. He risked a quiet whisper back. "What do you mean?" She shook her head. "Later, if you live." The words chilled him more than the cold night air. Through the crack in the wall, Daniel saw the men again. Their movements were sharp, almost too sharp, like machines wearing human skin. Their suits were perfect, their steps too steady. One of them stopped, raising a strange device that hummed softly. It flashed with blue light, scanning the ground. The girl grabbed Daniel's hand suddenly and pulled him toward the back door of the garage. She didn't ask, she commanded. He stumbled after her, his heart racing. She moved quickly, silently like a shadow. They slipped out into the night, running low through the backyard. Daniel glanced back. The men were still scanning near the garage, but it wouldn't be long before they found the heat of his footprints or the faint trace of hers. "Where are we going?" he whispered breathlessly. The girl didn't answer. She only pointed to his old truck parked at the edge of the yard. Daniel's eyes widened. "Wait, you want me to drive?" She nodded sharply. Daniel hesitated. Helping her was already a mistake. Driving her away would put him in even greater danger. But the look in her eyes wasn't just command, it was desperation. For the first time, Daniel saw fear hiding beneath her anger. He cursed under his breath and ran with her to the truck. They jumped inside and Daniel fumbled with the keys. The engine coughed, then roared to life. The sound shattered the quiet night. Immediately, shouts echoed behind them. The man had heard. "Go," the girl hissed. Daniel slammed his foot on the gas. The truck lurched forward, tires spitting gravel. Behind them, black cars started their engines. Headlights cut through the night, chasing them down the narrow road. The old truck rattled and groaned, but Daniel pushed it harder than he ever had. His hands gripped the wheel so tight his knuckles turned white. "Who are they?" Daniel shouted over the roar of the engine. The girl's eyes glowed faintly in the darkness of the cab. "Hunters. Servants of my people." "Servants? You mean they're aliens too?" She gave a short nod. "Half. They wear human skin, but inside they are not like you. They can smell me. That is why we must move." Daniel's skin crawled. He glanced at the headlights gaining on them. "And what happens if they catch us?" Her voice was cold, steady. "You die." "I go back to the cage," the word stabbed into him. He didn't know this girl. He didn't know her story. Yet here he was, risking his life for her. But something deep inside told him this mattered, more than he understood. The truck barreled down the road, its engine whining. One of the black cars pulled close behind them. A window rolled down and Daniel saw a metallic glint. "Get down!" The girl shouted. Daniel ducked just as a sharp blue beam shot past, scorching the air where his head had been. His heart nearly stopped. That wasn't a gun. That was something far worse. "Drive faster," she ordered. "I'm trying." Daniel yelled back, sweat dripping down his forehead. The girl turned, her eyes narrowing at the car behind them. For a moment her hand lifted. The metal dashboard of the truck rattled faintly under her touch. Then, with a sudden spark, the car's headlights flickered. Its engine sputtered. The driver swerved wildly before the car skidded off the road and crashed into a ditch. Daniel's jaw dropped. What did you just do?" The girl leaned back in her seat, breathing hard. "Used what I have left, but it will not last." Before Daniel could react, the second car surged closer, faster than the first. Its engine growled like a beast. The girl clenched her broken device, staring at it as if willing it to work. Sparks danced, but nothing more. She cursed under her breath. Daniel gritted his teeth. We can't outrun them forever. Where do we go? She looked at him, her eyes fierce. Far away from light, into shadows. Only there can we hide. Daniel swallowed hard. He pressed the gas pedal to the floor, the truck shaking dangerously as they sped into the unknown. Behind them, the hunters followed, relentless. Ahead of them only darkness stretched, and in that darkness Daniel realized one truth: he had crossed a line. He wasn't just helping a stranger anymore. He was running from something far greater, something that wanted her silenced and him erased. The chase had only begun. The truck roared down the lonely road, its old engine fighting against the speed. Daniel's hands trembled on the steering wheel, but his eyes stayed locked on the darkness ahead. The girl sat beside him, silent, holding the broken device like it was her last lifeline. Her glowing eyes flicked between the road and the rearview mirror, watching the fading headlights of the hunters behind them. For a while, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the rumble of the truck and Daniel's heavy breathing. Finally, when the road curved into a thick stretch of forest, he slowed slightly, guiding the truck onto a dirt path hidden among the trees. The tires crunched over branches as the truck disappeared into the shadows. Daniel stopped the engine and killed the lights. Silence swallowed them. Only the wind moved through the leaves. He sat back in the seat, his chest heaving. The girl turned her head toward him. You did not have to help me, she said quietly. Daniel let out a bitter laugh. Yeah, well, it's a little late for that now. He wiped sweat from his forehead. You dragged me into this. Her gaze hardened. I dragged you into nothing. You chose. You could have closed your door. You did not. Her words stung, but they were true. He could have turned away. Yet something about leaving her outside, abandoned and hunted, had been impossible. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. So tell me, what's really going on? Why are they after you? Why leave you here on Earth? The girl lowered her eyes, silent for a moment, as though weighing whether to speak. Finally, her voice came soft but sharp. Because I said no, Daniel frowned. No to what? Her hands tightened around the broken device. To becoming one of them. To serving their plan? What plan? Daniel pressed. She hesitated. Then with a deep breath, she leaned closer. They are coming for Earth, slowly, quietly. Your leaders do not see it. But it is true. They take small steps hidden in shadows. They prepare. One day they will take everything. Daniel's throat went dry. And you were supposed to help them? She nodded, her jaw clenched. I was born for it. Trained for it. But I refused. I told them I would never be their weapon. So they cast me out. To them I am nothing but a failure. Daniel stared at her. She looked young, fragile even. But her words carried the weight of war. He tried to imagine what it would mean. An entire planet silently preparing to take his world. It felt impossible. Yet he remembered the ship he had seen with his own eyes. Impossible or not, it was real. After a long silence, Daniel whispered, So what happens now? The girl's eyes narrowed. We run, we hide. And then we fight. Daniel gave her a weary look. Fight with what? This old truck? My toolbox? Her lips curved into the smallest hint of a smile. You have more than you think. Before he could ask what she meant, she lifted her hand slowly as though it weighed heavy. The metal wrench on the floor of the truck began to rattle. Daniel's eyes widened. It rose into the air, floating gently above her palm. His mouth fell open. You can move things, she nodded. It is my gift. Not all of my kind have it, but it drains me. I cannot do it often. The wrench clattered back to the floor and she leaned against the seat, exhausted. For the first time, Daniel saw past her anger and pride. She was just a child caught in something far too big. You risked that back there, Daniel said softly. You saved me. Her eyes closed halfway. You saved me first. The forest around them stayed quiet, but Daniel couldn't relax. His mind raced. Black-suited hunters. Alien ships. A girl with powers. A plan to take Earth. He had been an ordinary man yesterday, fixing machines in his garage. Now he was in the middle of something that could decide the fate of his world. Where do we even go? He asked. The girl opened her eyes again. Far, away from roads, away from eyes. There are places where even they do not look. I can show you. Daniel hesitated. His life was here. His home, his work, his quiet nights in the garage. If he followed her, all of that was gone. He would never go back to normal. But when he looked at her, tired, scarred, yet burning with defiance, He knew there was no choice. If what she said was true, then running away wasn't just about saving her. It was about saving himself, saving everyone. Daniel started the engine again. The truck growled low, ready to move. "All right," he said firmly. "Show me." The girl nodded once, her eyes shining in the dark. As the truck rolled deeper into the forest, Daniel gripped the wheel tighter. He didn't know where the road would lead. He didn't know if they could outrun the hunters or fight against something as big as an alien invasion. But he did know one thing. His journey with this strange, rebellious girl had just begun. And it would change everything. The forest road twisted like a serpent, dark and endless. Daniel's old truck bounced over roots and rocks, its headlights barely cutting through the mist. He kept glancing at the rearview mirror, half expecting the black cars to reappear. But for now, the road behind was empty. The girl sat beside him, her head leaning against the window. She looked calm, but her eyes flickered with alertness. Every sound in the woods, the snap of a branch, the cry of an owl, made her shift slightly, ready to react. Daniel broke the silence. "How long can we keep this up? They'll find us again, won't they?" She didn't look at him. "Yes, they always find me." Her words sank heavy in his chest. He wanted to ask more, but before he could, a strange hum filled the air. It wasn't the low growl of an engine. It was sharper, higher, almost mechanical. The girl sat up at once. "Stop," Daniel frowned. "What? Stop the truck," she hissed. He hit the brakes, the truck screeching to a halt. The hum grew louder, vibrating in his bones. Through the trees, Daniel saw glowing red lights weaving between the branches. His breath caught. "Drones," the girl whispered. Daniel's eyes widened. "Drones, as in alien drones?" She nodded, her jaw tight. "Hunters send them ahead. They see everything." The red lights drew closer, weaving through the trees like hungry insects. Daniel's heart pounded as he reached for the gear shift, but the girl grabbed his arm. "No, if we move, they will track faster. Out. Now." Daniel stared at her, confused, but the urgency in her eyes convinced him. They both jumped out of the truck and dashed into the trees. The forest floor was damp and soft beneath their boots, every step muffled by thick moss. The hum of the drones grew sharper. Red beams swept across the ground, searching. Daniel crouched behind a fallen log, pulling the girl down with him. His chest heaved, his mind racing. "What do we do now?" he whispered. The girl held the broken device in her hands, her fingers trembling as she tried to spark life into it. But nothing happened. Her face twisted with frustration. "Too weak," she muttered. The hum grew louder still. A red beam passed over the log, and Daniel ducked lower, holding his breath. He could feel the warmth of the light against his back. Then, with a sudden burst of courage or madness, Daniel picked up a rock. "If I hit one, maybe—" "No," the girl snapped, grabbing his wrist. "You cannot fight them like that. They will kill you before the rock leaves your hand." Her words froze him. He clenched his jaw, his knuckles white around the stone before letting it drop silently to the ground. The drones hovered closer, scanning. Daniel's chest felt like it would explode from holding his breath. Then the girl moved. Slowly, she extended her hand over the log. The metal shell of the nearest drone rattled faintly. The red beam flickered. Daniel's eyes widened as the drone wobbled in the air. The girl's hand trembled, her face tightening with effort. "Come on," she whispered through clenched teeth. The drone sparked, its red light sputtering before suddenly exploding in a flash of fire. The noise echoed through the forest. The other drones whirred angrily, beams slicing across the trees. Daniel grabbed her hand. "Run!" They bolted deeper into the forest, branches whipping at their faces. Behind them, the remaining drones followed, beams lighting up the night like blood-red searchlights. Daniel's lungs burned, but he pushed on, pulling the girl beside him. She stumbled once, weak from using her power, but he caught her before she fell. Through the trees ahead, Daniel spotted a narrow stream glistening in the moonlight. "This way!" he shouted, dragging her toward it. They splashed into the cold water, wading fast downstream. The rushing current masked their footsteps, and the thick trees covered their heat signatures. The hum behind them grew fainter. The red lights scattered, searching wildly in the wrong direction. Finally, when the forest fell quiet again, Daniel collapsed onto the bank, gasping for breath. The girl sank beside him, her small body trembling with exhaustion. Daniel turned to her, his voice hoarse. "You saved us back there again." She didn't look at him. "It was nothing." It won't stop them for long. Her words were true, but Daniel saw the toll it had taken on her. Her powers drained her, yet she still risked everything to protect him. For a moment, the night softened. The stream trickled beside them. The stars shone faintly above the trees, and Daniel realized something. She wasn't just a fugitive. She wasn't just a rebellious alien girl. She was a child carrying the weight of a war no one on Earth even knew about. He swallowed hard, then asked quietly, "Why me? Out of all the people they could leave you with, why my garage?" The girl finally turned her head, her glowing eyes meeting his. For once, her expression softened. Maybe it was chance, or maybe they knew you would not walk away. Her words sent a strange chill down Daniel's spine, because she was right. He hadn't walked away. But before he could respond, a new sound cut through the forest. A low rumbling roar, not a car, not a drone. Something deeper, something alive. The girl's eyes widened. She sat up fast, her body tense. "What is it?" Daniel whispered, fear rising in his chest. She stared into the shadows of the trees, her voice a low whisper. "Not hunters, worse." Daniel's stomach dropped. If the hunters weren't the worst thing chasing them, then what else lurked in the dark? The night once again held its breath. The forest was silent again, but Daniel's heart still pounded. That roar, they had both heard it. Not a machine, not a drone. Something alive was out there. He gripped the steering wheel harder when they finally made it back to the truck, but the girl stopped him with a hand on his arm. "Not the road," she whispered. "Too easy to follow. We go where they cannot." Daniel looked at her, sweat shining on his forehead. "And where exactly is that?" Her glowing eyes met his, calm and steady. "A place hidden. A place my people will not search." Without another word, she guided him through narrow forest paths until the truck could no longer fit. They abandoned it there, moving on foot. Daniel followed reluctantly, his boots crunching against the damp ground. Every step into the darkness made him question what he was doing. He could have gone home. He could have pretended none of this existed. But now he was in too deep. The girl led him to a ridge covered in moss and vines. At first it looked like nothing more than stone. But when she pressed her scarred hand against a faint symbol carved into the rock, a low rumble filled the air. Slowly the wall of stone slid open, revealing a dark tunnel beyond. Daniel's mouth went dry. "What is this?" She glanced back at him. "A place left long ago. A base built before humans walked here. My people use many such places. This one was forgotten." She stepped inside. The tunnel lit up with a faint blue glow, as though the walls themselves carried light. Daniel followed, his breath catching. The air was cool, metallic, and carried a strange hum that seemed alive. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber beneath the earth. Daniel froze. The walls were lined with strange machines, their surfaces etched with markings that glowed faintly. Some pulsed as if they still had power. At the center stood a tall table covered with alien maps, weapons, and objects he couldn't name. "This is," Daniel whispered, struggling for words. "Not human." The girl walked forward, brushing her fingers across one of the glowing maps. "It is older than your cities. Built as a watch point. When my people came long ago, they used it to see, to study, to plan." Daniel's stomach turned. "You mean, they've been here for years, watching us?" Her voice was steady, but her eyes carried sorrow. "Yes, watching, preparing. Earth is not safe. It never was." Daniel stepped closer to the table, staring at the glowing map. Shapes of continents floated in light, surrounded by marks he couldn't read. He realized with horror that some of the marks were military bases, cities, and major power plants. His country was marked. So was every corner of the world. "They already know everything," he muttered. The girl nodded. "They want control, quietly, piece by piece, until no one can stop them." Daniel rubbed his face, panic rising in his chest. "This is insane. Nobody would believe this. If I told anyone, if I showed them, they would call you mad," she interrupted sharply. "They would lock you away. That is why I fight alone." Daniel looked at her. Really looked at her. She was small, scarred, young. But here she was, standing in a hidden alien base, defying a power that could crush Earth without effort. "You shouldn't fight alone," he said quietly. She tilted her head, studying him. "Then fight with me." Before Daniel could answer, a shrill alarm blared through the chamber. The machines along the walls glowed brighter, red symbols flashing. The girl's eyes widened. "No, they found us." Daniel spun toward the tunnel. A faint hum grew louder, the same hum he had heard in the forest when the drones appeared. Shadows shifted at the entrance, and the red glow of scanners crept down the walls. "How did they—" Daniel began. "The alarm," the girl said grimly. The base woke. "They can trace it." Daniel's blood ran cold. "So what do we do?" She grabbed the broken device from her belt, pressing it hard until sparks lit across its surface. For a second, the star map flickered to life, showing dozens of points scattered across the galaxy. Her face tightened with pain as she forced the device to stay active. "This base holds more than maps," she said through clenched teeth. "It holds weapons. Things your people cannot imagine. If they take it, Earth is lost." Daniel's eyes darted to the glowing machines, the alien guns resting on the table, the strange pods lining the walls. His heart pounded. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a hero. But he knew what she meant. If the hunters claimed this base, humanity would never stand a chance. The hum grew louder. Shadows moved closer. Daniel grabbed the nearest weapon from the table. It was cold and heavy, its surface glowing faintly in his hands. He had no idea how to use it, but he pointed it toward the tunnel anyway. The girl's eyes met his, fierce and unyielding. "We hold them here." Daniel swallowed hard, his body shaking, but he nodded. Outside, the hunters advanced. Inside, the chamber glowed red. The air buzzed with tension, and in that moment, Daniel realized he wasn't just hiding anymore. He was standing at the edge of a war. The fight for Earth was about to begin. The chamber pulsed red, the walls alive with warning symbols. Daniel gripped the alien weapon tightly, his palms slick with sweat. Across the room, the girl stood tall despite her small frame, her glowing eyes locked on the tunnel where the hunters' shadows grew longer. The hum of machines outside deepened into a roar. Boots struck the tunnel floor in perfect rhythm, metal and flesh moving as one. The hunters were here. Daniel's breath came fast. He had never held a gun before, let alone one not of this world. But he knew there was no turning back. If they lost this base, Earth lost with it. The girl's voice cut through the noise. "Stand with me. Do not hesitate. They will show no mercy." Daniel nodded, fear burning in his chest but not stopping him. "I'm with you." The first hunter appeared, its eyes glowing faint blue behind dark glasses. It raised a sleek weapon humming with power. Daniel pulled the trigger instinctively. The alien gun roared, spitting a bolt of white light that tore through the tunnel. The hunter's body convulsed before collapsing in a heap of smoke and sparks. Daniel froze in shock. He had actually done it. "Do not stop," the girl shouted. More hunters poured in, black suits, flawless faces, their movements sharp and unnatural. The air filled with the screech of weapons firing, beams slicing across the chamber. Daniel ducked behind a pillar, returning fire clumsily, every shot rattling his bones. The girl moved like a storm. With one hand, she lifted a heavy metal beam from the floor and hurled it through the air. 2 hunters fell, crushed beneath the weight. Another raised its gun, but she thrust her palm forward and the weapon crumpled in its hands like paper. But every time she used her power, Daniel saw her weaken. Her body shook, her breaths grew shorter, yet she kept fighting. Daniel shouted, "There's too many." She didn't answer. Instead, she slammed her broken device onto the glowing table in the center of the chamber. Sparks erupted, the star map blazing bright above them. It projected not just stars, but a signal, pulsing into the void of space. The hunters froze for a moment, scanning the map as if realizing what she had done. Then they roared in unison and charged harder. Daniel fired until his weapon burned hot in his hands, but for every hunter that fell, 2 more seemed to take its place. They were surrounded. One hunter leapt onto the table, striking the girl across the chest. She stumbled, the device slipping from her hands. Daniel's heart stopped as the hunter raised its weapon to finish her. "No," he roared. Without thinking, he tackled the creature, slamming it to the ground. The alien gun discharged, the beam scorching the wall. Daniel wrestled, fists flying, rage and fear fueling his strength. The hunter's cold eyes glared at him, but Daniel didn't stop until the creature lay still. He looked up. The girl was back on her feet, her device glowing faintly in her trembling hands. Her face was pale, but her eyes burned like fire. "It worked," she whispered. "They are coming," Daniel frowned. "Who's coming?" The chamber shook suddenly, dust raining from the ceiling. A deafening roar filled the tunnels, not from hunters, not from drones. From above. Through a crack in the stone ceiling, Daniel saw it. A massive ship breaking through the clouds, but unlike the hunter craft. Sleek, dark, and marked with strange symbols that glowed red. The girl's lips curved into the smallest smile. The rebellion. The hunters froze mid-step, their heads snapping upward as the sound of the rebel ship grew louder. For the first time, Daniel saw hesitation in them. The girl raised her hand one last time, pouring every ounce of strength she had left. The broken device flared, sending a blinding pulse across the chamber. The hunters screamed, their suits flickering, their bodies crumbling like ash. Then silence. Daniel dropped his weapon, chest heaving. The chamber was filled with smoke and dust, the ground littered with the remains of the hunters. The girl fell to her knees, exhausted. Daniel rushed to her side, catching her before she collapsed. "Hey, stay with me," he said, his voice breaking. Her eyes fluttered open. She looked at him with a faint, tired smile. "You changed everything, a human who did not run." Daniel swallowed hard, his throat tight. "You don't have to fight alone anymore." Above them, the ceiling cracked wider. Light poured through as the rebel ship descended. A hatch opened and figures emerged, aliens like her, scarred and fierce but carrying the same fire in their eyes. They reached down, lifting her gently from Daniel's arms. She looked at him one last time. "I will return. I promise." Daniel stood frozen, watching as the rebels carried her aboard. The ship's engines thundered, and in a blaze of light it lifted into the night sky. The forest fell silent again. The hidden base hummed faintly, then powered down, its red warnings fading into darkness. Daniel stood alone in the ruins, his body trembling. He looked up at the stars where the ship had vanished. His life, the quiet nights in the garage, the old machines, the safe routines, was gone forever. But deep in his chest, he felt something new. A spark, a purpose. He had been part of something far greater than himself, and though the girl was gone, Daniel knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning.